You're listening to That Teacher podcast, hosted by me, Alyssa McDonald. I'm that teacher who decided enough was enough and started an online business to fund my own 2-year maternity leave from my teaching job. This journey has been life-changing, bringing me opportunities to lead and grow in ways I never thought possible. Now, I'm on a mission to help other educators, moms, and impact-focused entrepreneurs find ways to build the online business of their dreams so they can have the time freedom and financial freedom they deserve. So grab a cup of coffee and let's bring your wildest dreams to life. In this episode, I accidentally dropped an announcement that I didn't really mean to drop. I sort of spilled the beans. I'm recording this intro to the episode to explain myself a little bit because I feel like I surprised myself by dropping the announcement. I haven't really figured out a way to share this news yet. So apparently I can't keep a secret and I just blurted it out in this episode. So I might as well just tell you all about it. I recently started working for another startup, not in the education space, in a completely different space, which has been really fun and interesting. And as you know, I've always, since I left the classroom, I've been working on Teacher Hustle University. If you've been listening for a while, you know, I work on helping teachers and impact-focused entrepreneurs start and grow their businesses. That's been an amazing journey. And 2 years ago, I started an educational technology startup called Pop PD. We are still working on Pop PD, and we have a really exciting new direction for Pop PD, but we're working on that slowly with a beta group in the background. And so that freed up some more time for me to work with another startup. And I ended up dropping that in this episode and not meaning to, but I wanted to explain kind of the pieces of my life and what's going on right now. And I will be completely honest and vulnerable in sharing that it's been hard for me to understand what my journey is after teaching. And sometimes I feel guilty because I spent 13 years in education and, you know, I'm really proud of what I did while I was there and think that I was a very good educator. And I was excited to make a difference with my classroom. And I felt like I was making a difference with Teacher Hustle University and empowering educators to start their own business. And I know that I am, and I did. And I know that Pop PD is making a difference. But I struggle to figure out, where does my skill set fit in with the education piece, and how do the two merge, and what the heck am I even doing, right? Like, am I really making an impact? So I know that I am, and I know how to talk myself through that, but I wanted to share that in case any of you are wondering on your winding career journey and winding business journey, how does it all fit together? And what am I really doing here? What's my ultimate goal? And what kind of impact am I really making? I don't think we have to know that. We just need to keep taking the next right step. And for me, working for this startup felt like a really cool next step. And I will say I learned more in the past 2 weeks working with them than I have in a very long time about how to grow and scale businesses. And it's been pretty amazing. That's my news, and I'm excited to share it. And then you'll hear where I dropped it in this episode. Okay, enjoy the episode. I recently got the question, what do I do when my career shifts and I no longer have the time to spend on my business? How do I prioritize? I love this question because it's so relevant for all of us, whether we have a change in our career, or we just added a new family member, or we just got a pet, or we have overall less time that we want to spend on our business. We want to spend less time on our business for whatever reason. There's so many changes in our lives that determine how much time we have to give to our business. And there are ebbs and flows of when we want to give time and when we want to take a break. So in those down times when we have or want to spend less time in our business, how do we think about prioritization? What gets put on the back burner? What gets put on the front burner? What takes priority? What doesn't? What gets taken off the table completely? How do we make these decisions? In this episode, I'm going to give you 3 planning processes that are key to this prioritization. And when you have these in place, it's much easier to make these decisions. Having a business, owning a business is inevitably risky. That's just the nature of owning a business. But it doesn't have to be so risky that you just have no idea what's going to happen. I'm like picturing Sandra Bullock in that movie where she's wearing a blindfold. Like, that is not the way we want to go about business ownership. It does not have to be that risky. You can mitigate the risk in a lot of different ways, simple ways that give you much more control over your own results. We are not going to put our stuff out there, cross our fingers, and hope that it sells. That is the least savvy way to run a business. We're not going to do that. We're going to start with process number 1 in business planning, which is planning your revenue. And this comes first. It comes before anything else. It is the first thing you should do when you come up with an idea for your business. And if it wasn't the first thing you did, or you've never done it at all, that's okay. I'm going to tell you how to do it, and you're going to start doing it. But this was the very first thing I did when I started my business. And that's only because I've had businesses before and I knew I needed to do this part first. It's okay if you didn't do it, but you're going to do it now. It's literally napkin math. It's not hard. It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need a beautiful Google spreadsheet. You don't need all these analytics and numbers. You can get out a napkin and jot this down. Eventually, you might have a process for your revenue planning. I do now. It's in Google Sheets if you're curious. But it's just reverse engineering your income goals. If you've listened to me, this is not new to you. And I'll tell you how I did it when I first started out. So when I first started my business, and a lot of you know this story, I wanted to take a longer maternity leave. Now, when I first started, I just wanted to take longer than 6 weeks, which was what I had as paid leave at the time. And I had 2 children where I went back after 6 weeks, and it was horrible. So I knew that I wanted to stay out a little bit longer. I put the number $20,000 down on a piece of paper, probably a scrap piece of paper that I've thrown away by now. Put that number down, and I felt like that was a number where I would feel comfortable taking, I can't remember exactly how much I thought I was going to take at the time, but let's say like a couple of months of maternity leave. And I was like, that would be amazing. And then I started to think about not what product am I going to make or what am I going to do. I thought about what is the money I need to make and when do I want to have that money by. So the next thing I did was think, okay, and I can't remember. It would have been like maybe January when I started thinking through this. And I wasn't like pregnant or anything at the time. I just wanted to prove to my husband that I could make enough money to stay out on a longer leave. But I think I had it in my mind that I wanted to do it by like the beginning of the school year of the following year. So I knew I had kind of a short amount of time to make this money, really just as a proving point to prove to myself and to my husband that I could do this. And I thought about, okay, well, if I have time to do maybe 3 launches between now and when I want to make that money, how much do I need to make for each launch? I figured I could launch my product 3 times before my deadline. And so to get to my number, I would need to make about $3,500 per launch. Now, for some of you who have been in business a while, you might think, well, that sounds pretty easy. For me at the time, $3,500 was like, it was like winning the lottery, like that huge. I just had my teaching salary at that point, and I had no idea how much money I could make from an online business. And it's part of it is just proving it to yourself. Part of this goal setting and this revenue planning is just showing yourself that you can hit these goals and giving yourself the confidence that you do have more control over your revenue than maybe you think you do. Okay, so with the napkin math, then I figured out, okay, I need to make about $3,500 per launch. And then I decided what product I was going to make and how much I was going to charge. Of course, there was a lot more that went into the decision around what product to make, like what problems was my audience grappling with and what was I an expert in and blah, 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 blah. But I knew I needed a product that I wanted it to be higher price, so I needed lower volume of people. At the time, I did have a few items on TPT that I had put on there kind of haphazardly while I was teaching, just stuff I was making for my classroom. I did look at my TPT store and consider continuing to make TPT products, but I did have an expertise in marketing, and that was where I saw that the problem was really apparent and where I felt like I could really add value and where I felt like I could charge the kind of money I needed to make in the kind of time that I had. So reverse engineering my income goals played a huge part in what kind of product I sold and what my niche was and what I was going to talk about. I do want to say that because that was part of it. So I needed to sell, let's say, 18 of my product at $197. And then I just got to work. And I knew I had that goal in my mind the whole time. And I knew that I wanted to make that income. I wasn't pricing my product willy-nilly or guessing. I wasn't just like trying to sell random one-off products here and there. That's leaving way too much to chance. We don't need to leave that much to chance. So get out a scrap sheet of paper, pause this podcast, and let's plan your revenue out for the next year. How much money do you want to make? How many launches do you feel like you can do? And I'm going to talk more about that in the next process. So maybe listen to that before you pause me. How many launches can you do? And then from there, how many sales do you need to make? And everything else that happens in between is just bonus. Any other sales that you make of smaller digital products, higher price offer that you have that you sell one or two of, that's all bonus. We need to figure out this like foundational revenue planning first. The second planning process is big picture planning. This is, I think, comes really naturally to us as teachers. This is how we plan our lesson plans too, right? With the end in mind. I like to take out a giant year-long calendar and plan out my launches for the year. When I'm doing this, I think about things like my own capacity. I think about my audience and how often they need to hear about this topic, or when are the times of the year that this problem is really important to them. For me, for marketing and teaching business strategy, that's like early summer, January, sometimes October, November. And that's how I determine when my launches are. And I actually color code them. So I map out the actual launch weeks. That's like the 5 to 7 days that I'm actually going to be promoting one product. And I'm going to be adding a sense of urgency, like a bonus, a promotion, or some other limited time offer that I've put together. Then in that big picture planning, so I've got that week, that launch week marked off. That's when most of the direct selling takes place. I'm talking about the product over and over. I'm talking about it on social. I'm writing emails. I'm doing collaborations. I'm talking about the thing I have for sale. Then I kind of pencil in 10 days prior to that, which is considered the pre-launch period. If you've been through Course Creators Intensive or you downloaded my new launch playbook, you already know about all of this because there's a very clear playbook to this method. But just kind of generally speaking, marking off 10 days before your selling period. And during those 10 days, you are providing value. This does a lot of great stuff for you. It kind of cushions the selling. And I know a lot of you who are listening, like just you don't love to sell. It feels uncomfortable and kind of icky, and you don't want to do too much of it. But if you spend the 10 days before your launch period adding value, people aren't going to mind when you start selling your thing. And they're not going to mind anyway, by the way. It's okay. It's okay to sell. But I know this will make you feel better, and it helps just kind of take the stress off of having to sell all the time. During that 10 days, you might do something like a 3-part email series or a challenge or maybe a webinar or something if you're launching a course. I just did a podcast. Our last episode was all about some of these email series and challenges and such. So go back and listen to that episode if you didn't yet. Something like that in those 10 days where you're providing a lot of value and growing your email list a bit is great. And then I color, get out your colored pencils. I color the week or so after launch week, and that is my hermit mode week. After you launch, you don't need to say anything. You don't need to post on social. You don't need to email your list. You don't need to make a story. You do not need to show up. You need to take a break. You will, if you've done it correctly, feel exhausted from talking about your product and adding value and showing up and being relevant, and you need a rest. So that whole chunk of marketing is one whole spike in your big picture planning. And we want to spread those out throughout the year so that we're conserving our energy, and especially if you're only able to spend a limited time on your business. Maybe you only have 2 of those like launch spikes a year, and everything else is sort of just like lighter fill in the blank style stuff. But the point is you need to reach your revenue goals with that big picture planning. So these kind of work together. They work hand in hand, right? What I want you to think about is when you have that basic revenue plan and you have that basic big picture launch plan, nothing is set in stone. It's all, you can change things here and there as you need to, but you have the formula to make the revenue you want. There is no reason that you should not make that revenue. You can find a way, but it's that direction, it's that North Star that allows us to prioritize and find the way. It clears the path for us. So the less time you have to spend in your business, the more important this strategy becomes. And I know those of you who have listened to me talk before have heard me talk about this strategy. I don't change this strategy. It's a very foundational business strategy, but we tend to lose sight of it because there's all this pressure to email your list weekly, post on social 3 times a week, pin on Pinterest, keep up with your podcast or your YouTube videos or your blog weekly, whatever. That's actually not very important. And it would be the first thing I would cut if I were somebody that had less time to spend on my business. It's the last place I would spend my time. The important thing to understand is that there are 3 core motions when it comes to marketing. We have live launches, spikes, what I just told you about, that whole kind of grouping of time where you're talking about one particular topic and one particular product that's going to help move you towards your income goals faster. Great. That requires you to show up, to do some social media work, to write some emails, to just get excited and show up, right? That requires your live energy during a period of time. The second marketing motion is evergreen funnels. These are those funnels that are working in the background to take some of the pressure off of you. These are great to build in the small time that you have because they give you a better return on investment when you are not present, when you cannot be live. So in those times in between launches, your evergreen funnels are doing the lift for you so that you can literally walk away from your business more often during those times and still make sales. The third marketing motion is building community and nurturing your audience. And that's where regular social, regular podcasting, regular blogging, well, blogging, I guess, has another purpose too. It could be part of your funnels, but that whole regular, I need to do this weekly because my audience is paying attention and I want to continue to nurture them and build my community. Maybe I want to reach a new audience and get visible. Cool. That's great. But it is not nearly as important as a live launch and evergreen funnels because people actually don't care that much. I hate to break it to you if you don't show up for a weekly newsletter or even a weekly podcast. If you are spending less time in your business and you can only email your people once a month, it's okay because you're going to do live launches and you have evergreen funnels set up and that's 80% of your marketing. And this is just the leftover part. This is just icing on the cake. It's nice. It's great. It's a good strategy. Your audience is not going to notice if you reduce the amount of time that you show up regularly. If they do notice, let's say you've been putting a lot of pressure on yourself to get out a weekly email newsletter and you're just not able to do it anymore and you move bi-weekly. First of all, you don't have to make an announcement. Just do it. But let's say they do notice. I'm oh my gosh, Alyssa, she used to send that Monday mixtape every week and now she only sends it every couple of weeks. She must have needed a break. It must have been too much for her to send every week. I'm super excited about the value I'm going to get every other week. Right? That's what they're really thinking. If they're thinking, "Oh, Alyssa, my gosh, she can't even write a weekly newsletter. What happened? This is such a scam. Her free weekly newsletter is not coming to me weekly. Oh my gosh, I'm going to unsubscribe." Great. Goodbye. You're not the kind of person I want to hang out with anyway, right? People understand and they're not following along nearly as much as you think they are. So please give yourself grace when it comes to that regular, consistent content. That is a very small slice of your marketing. And if you do your live launches regularly, you will still increase your visibility. If you have evergreen funnels in place and lots of them, you will still nurture your audience. I have not posted on social in since my last launch, which had to have been months ago. And that's because things in my life are changing. I actually just started working, which I haven't even made this announcement, so here it is. I just started working for another startup, and I'm working with them almost, well, like full time, really full time, with some of my other stuff being moved to the back burner. And I've had to ruthlessly prioritize. And when I really took a look at what I was doing that I felt like actually made a difference in my income and what I was doing that didn't, I took out anything that wasn't contributing to, let me back up. In my consistent marketing strategy, my nurturing strategy, I took out anything that felt cumbersome or hard or that I didn't like, and I replaced it with things that I did like. So right now I have my weekly newsletter, my weekly podcast, and I also turn that into a blog post. That's it for consistent marketing for me. I have not been posting on social. I post about Love is Blind in my stories because I like to talk to you guys about it. And that is the thing that takes up the most time for me. And it's the most time consuming. It takes the most thought. I might outsource that at some point. But right now, with all of the other stuff I've got going on, it's just not the priority. It's okay. My audience loves the value I'm providing here. I get replies to my Monday mixtapes all the time that are like, this email is the best. I'm going to open it whenever you send it. If I miss a week, you all don't care. You're like, oh, she must have had a tough week, or she must be on vacation, or she must be sick, whatever. It's okay. Anyway, I feel like I've been lecturing you long enough on that. But one more thing that I wanted to say is what I am prioritizing now that I am working for this other startup. I am prioritizing live launches. So when I'm live launching, it's not very often, but when I do, I'm going to show up. I'm going to be there and I'm going to go all out. And I have tons of evergreen funnels in place. I made sure they were all ironed out before I ever took on this job. And here I am. Okay, so that's my lecture for today. We've got a third planning process I want to share with you, which is weekly and daily project management. When you have that big picture, that North Star in mind, now when you sit down to work weekly and daily, you're going to be able to drill way down and prioritize big time. You get to ask yourself when you sit down, now that you have this other planning process in place, these planning processes, you get to say to yourself when you sit down, okay, I brain dumped all of the tasks that I have in front of me. Which ones are moving me toward those revenue goals? And you're going to be super crystal clear on what those revenue goals are. Do they support a live launch? Does it help me build out an evergreen funnel? Or is this more of that consistent marketing strategy that I just feel like I have to keep up with? If it's that consistent marketing strategy slice, put it on the back burner. You can get there, but it'll be okay if you don't. Focus on those launches, focus on those funnels. Then you're going to have a bunch of tasks that are like quick and easy, little one-off tasks that take you 10 minutes or so. Bundle those all together and knock them out anytime that you sit down to work that is not really a good focus time. You know those times, right, where you're like, I think I have an hour right now. I'm going to sit down, have a power hour, and knock out all of those small tasks. So what I like to do is definitely you want to have a project management system. It doesn't matter which one. No one is better than the other. It's just your preference. Asana is a very simple task checker offer. ClickUp is almost the same thing, only much more involved. There's much more capabilities around like goal setting and different things you can do in there with notebooks and stuff like that. And then there's Trello, which is great if you're a visual person and you like sort of the board view. I don't care what you use. It could be a piece of paper on the side of your desk, fine. But you want to group your marketing tasks into live launch tasks, evergreen funnel tasks, and then that last piece, I wish I had a better name for it, but like that consistent marketing piece, let's call it like nurturing. Nurturing, that's a great word for it, nurturing piece. We're going to bucket those out and then prioritize based on what's coming next. If you don't have a launch coming up, then work on, buttoning up your funnels or plugging away at your funnels. If you are doing a power hour, maybe that's where you create a social media post and write a quick email. Those things that are more nurturing. If you have a live launch coming up, obviously you're going to prioritize that. That's how we're going to look at it. in our project manager. And you can literally bundle them in your project manager like that. Launches, funnels, and nurturing, whatever that name's going to be. Okay. And then daily, I want you to take a look at those tasks, take a look at the time in front of you, decide, is it going to be a power hour where I'm not really going to be able to focus? If so, I'm going to knock out some of those smaller tasks. If it's you've got 2 to 3 hours in front of you and you're going to be able to really focus, then pick 2 or 3 things and put them on your daily list. I work within ClickUp and I can create a daily view. You can also use a tool called Sunsama that I absolutely love. I'll link that in the show notes. It is a daily organizer that pulls in your calendar plus your tasks that you're working on for the day, allows you to set different times for different tasks, and really just helps keep you focused and helps you reflect on your work time, helps you start your work time and close out your work time, which is a really nice way to manage your time. The last thing I want to mention here is if you have less time in your business, think about delegating. What are the kinds of tasks that you are doing? And you've heard me give this lecture before. If you were earning $100 an hour, which is what you deserve to earn, right? Because you're a visionary, you're a business owner, you're strategic. What are the tasks that you would never pay somebody $100 an hour to do? Okay, if you're answering emails for customer service questions, or you are, creating scheduling your blog post and putting links in there, whatever. You can pay somebody to do that. And I know that a lot of you are like, oh my gosh, you mean I have to hire somebody? I'm going to go interview them. No, just get somebody on a project basis to start and have them knock out some of those tasks for you. See how it goes. If you like working with the person and the price is working out for you, continue your work together. You need somebody who can handle probably administrative type stuff, scheduling type stuff. That is implementation level stuff that you should not be spending your very valuable and very little time on. That's what I've got for you today. I hope that those 3 planning processes help you. I hope that talking about how we can de-emphasize nurture content when we have less time to spend in our business helps you give yourself a little bit more grace. You are okay to take a break. It's okay to spend less time in your business. That's why you're working on a business that is more passive, and that's really exciting. Okay, everybody. In the next episode, I actually came up with the idea while I was working on this one, so I do want to share. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about your tech stack, because I was thinking about these project management tools and how we get confused between like ClickUp, Airtable, Flowdesk. What are all the different pieces of technology I need, and what are the purposes of each? So more on productivity in the next episode, and I will see you there. Thanks for listening to That Teacher Podcast. I have a lot of resources for you in the show notes. Make sure you subscribe to my Monday mixtapes and tune in here to the podcast to learn more business and marketing strategy to help grow your business to the business of your dreams so that you can have the financial wiggle room you've been hoping for. Looking forward to supporting you in your journey.